15 prisoners, one convoy, and a journey that quietly placed Uganda inside one of the most delicate stages of the search for peace in Eastern Democratic Republic of Congo. The detainees were released by authorities and transported from Beni in North Kivu through Uganda before being handed over to the AFC M23 movement in Rutshuru. The International Committee of the Red Cross facilitated the operation as a neutral intermediary. It is the first non-prisoner transfer under the Doha mechanism between Kinshasa and AFC M23. On the surface, this may look like a humanitarian gesture, but diplomatically, it is much bigger. Prisoner releases are often among the first confidence-building measures in a peace process, a way for enemies to demonstrate that agreements signed on paper can actually produce action on the ground. And that is where the Doha process now faces its biggest question. Can trust be built between Kinshasa and a movement it still considers an armed rebellion? Yes! And then there is Uganda. The prisoners did not simply move from one Congolese location to another. Their journey passed through Uganda. That gives Kampala a role, even if a carefully calibrated one, in a process whose ultimate destination is peace in Eastern Democratic Republic of Congo. The International Committee for the Red Cross says the transfer was conducted under the Doha mechanism and involved the movement of the 15 people from Beni through Uganda before their handover to AFC M23. Uganda's significance here is not accidental at all. Kampala has for long had deep security interests in Eastern DRC. In fact, Ugandan troops are currently operating in Eastern DRC alongside the DRC forces against the Allied Democratic Forces, that is the ADF, under Operation Shujaa. And Uganda has also maintained diplomatic engagement with the Congolese government and other regional actors. That history gives Kampala something that many outsiders do not have: geographical proximity, security experience, and established relationships on both sides of the border. But it also creates a diplomatic balancing act. Because Uganda's role in Eastern DRC has always attracted scrutiny, Kampala must pursue its own security interests while avoiding the perception that it is taking sides in a conflict involving Kinshasa, M23, and Rwanda. That makes this latest development particularly interesting. Uganda is not the mediator of the Doha process. Qatar is. The International Committee of the Red Cross is facilitating humanitarian transfers, but Uganda provided the geographical corridor through which this particular confidence-building measure was completed. And that raises an important diplomatic question. Could Uganda become more useful as a bridge between the parties without becoming a party to the dispute? The answer is far from certain, because even this prisoner release has exposed the fragility of the process. AFC M23 has questioned the composition of the 15-person group, saying only 9 were on its submitted list of detainees. The movement says one of those released was a Ugandan national with no links to AFC M23, while 5 others were not on its list. That may sound like a technical disagreement. It is not. In a fragile peace process, technical disagreements can quickly become political obstacles. If the parties cannot agree on who should be released, how can they agree on the much harder questions? Questions like, who controls the territories? What happens to the armed groups? And what even happens to the displaced populations? And ultimately, who guarantees that guns will go silent? And there is another reason this matters. Eastern DRC conflict is no longer simply a Congolese problem. It is a Great Lakes problem. Rwanda remains central to the security equation. Burundi has security concerns of its own. Uganda has troops and strategic interests in Eastern DRC, and international actors from Qatar to Washington are now deeply invested in finding a settlement. The danger is that Eastern DRC becomes a diplomatic maze, with too many mediators, too many interests, and too little trust. Yes! So, what does the journey of 15 prisoners really tell us? Perhaps not that peace has arrived in Eastern DRC, but it tells us something important. the parties have finally demonstrated that an agreement can translate into movement on the ground. For Uganda, the significance is even more strategic. Kampala now finds itself at a crossroads, militarily engaged in the fight against the ADF, diplomatically connected to Kinshasa, and geographically positioned along one of the routes linking the Congolese government and M23. The challenge will arguably be turning that strategic position into diplomatic influence without being pulled deeper into the conflict, because in the Great Lakes region, geography is never just geography. Sometimes the path to peace runs through your backyard. I'm Daniel KIBET.